morning, good morning. Shall we stand as we're able and join in singing together, Gather the Spirit, number 347.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to First Unitarian Church. We are a multi-generational community that strives to nurture the individual spirit and together build a beloved community. Whether you're here in the sanctuary today or joining us online, we are so glad that you are with us this morning. Following the service, I invite you to join fellow congregants for a social hour next door in the Buchanan building. And if you're new here this morning, I invite you to join us for a brief welcome circle directly following the service over here in the gallery to your right. So it's just a chance to meet some community leaders, staff, and other new folks and ask any questions you might have about our community. I have a few announcements this morning before we get started. First, this morning during service, after the benediction, our board moderator, Leslie Polkosba, will be sharing a special brief announcement. And then following the postlude, the board will continue with a more detailed update. So we invite you to stay in the sanctuary following service for that board update. And at 11:45 in the Channing room this morning in the building next door, there will be a First Steps orientation and campus tour for new or returning members. This session offers an overview of the church's history, core values, and vibrant community, and encourages participants to explore their connection and discover ways to engage with the church. And as we look forward to the week ahead, we invite you to join us at 7 p.m. on Friday, October 11th for our Yom Kippur service in Elliott Chapel. Reverend Leah Angari will lead that service that asks us to reflect on the work of repair and choosing life. And the next Sunday after service, we will kick off a new year of community circles. These are a chance to gather with fellow congregants and reflect on our monthly themes. There will be circles for parents and young adults, and just general circles for anyone who wants to drop in and connect with your fellow congregants. You can look for more information about those in the weekly e-news. And now let us take a moment to say hello this morning and greet our neighbors.
Welcome, everyone. Let us begin our time of worship by lighting our chalices, and Mingus is going to help us do that. We have our chalice for the congregation and our chalice for our children who are with us every first Sunday of the month and are launching a very exciting first Sunday of the month program today. If you're at home, I invite you to light a candle or a chalice alongside of us, and we're so glad to be in community with you and us here together. Let us recite our chalice lighting. We are Unitarian Universalists. We light our chalices in faith, in hope, and in love. Our call to worship is by Anne Hillman. We look with uncertainty beyond the old choices for clear-cut answers to a softer, more permeable aliveness, which is every moment at the brink of death. For something new is being born in us if we but let it. We stand at a new doorway, awaiting that which comes, daring to be human creatures, vulnerable to the beauty of existence, learning to love.
This weekend, we launch our monthly theme of trust, giving us a time to explore together what it means to trust and to be worthy of the trust of others. As our story unfolds and you meet the different characters, think about who is practicing trust and who might be practicing being worthy of trust. Who would you want to be and why? The Empty Pot, written and illustrated by Demi. A long time ago in China, there was a boy named Ping who loved flowers. Anything he planted burst into bloom. Up came flowers, bushes, and even big fruit trees as if by magic.
Everyone in the kingdom loved flowers, too. They planted them everywhere, and the air smelled like perfume. The emperor loved birds and animals, but flowers most of all, and he tended his own garden every day. But the emperor was very old. He needed to choose a successor to the throne. Who would his successor be, and how would the emperor choose? Because the emperor loved flowers so much, he decided to let the flowers choose.
The next day, a proclamation was issued. All the children in the land were to come to the palace. There, they would be given special flower seeds by the emperor. Whoever can show me theirs in a year's time, he said, will succeed me to the throne. This news created great excitement through the land. Children from all over the country swarmed to the palace to get their flower seeds. All the parents wanted their children to be chosen emperor, and all the children hoped they would be chosen too.
When Ping received his seed from the emperor, he was the happiest child of all. He was sure he could grow the most beautiful flower. Ping filled the flower pot with rich soil. He planted the seed in it very carefully. He watched it every day. He couldn't wait to see it sprout, grow, and blossom into a beautiful flower. Day after day passed, but nothing grew in his pot. Ping was very worried. He put a new soil into a bigger pot, and he transferred the seed into the rich black soil. Another 2 months he waited. Still nothing happened. By and by, the whole year passed.
Spring came, and all the children put their best clothes on to greet the emperor. They rushed to the palace with their beautiful flowers, eagerly hoping to be chosen. Ping was ashamed of his empty pot. He thought the other children would laugh at him because, for once, he couldn't get a flower to grow. His clever friend ran by, holding a great big plant. "Ping," he said, "you're not really going to the emperor with an empty pot, are you? Couldn't you grow a big flower like mine?" "I've grown lots of flowers, better than yours," Ping said. "It's just this seed that won't grow." Ping's father overheard this and said, "You did your best, and your best is good enough to present to the emperor."
Holding the empty pot in his hands, Ping went straight away to the palace. The emperor was looking at the flowers slowly, one by one. How beautiful all the flowers were, but the emperor was frowning and did not say a word. Finally, he came to Ping. Ping hung his head in shame, expecting to be punished. The emperor asked him, "Why did you bring an empty pot?" Ping started to cry and replied, "I planted the seed you gave me, and I watered it every day, but it still didn't sprout. I put it in a better pot with better soil, but it still didn't sprout. I tended it all year long, but nothing grew. So today I had to bring an empty pot without a flower. It was the best I could do."
When the emperor heard these words, a smile slowly spread across his face, and he put his arm around Ping. Then he exclaimed to one and all, "I have found him. I have found the one person worthy of being emperor. Where you all got your seeds from, I do not know, for the seeds I gave you had all been cooked, so it was impossible for any of them to grow."
The emperor continued, "I admire Ping's great courage to appear before me with the empty truth, And now I reward him with my entire kingdom and make him emperor of all the land. And that is the end of our story about trust, honesty, risk, and accountability. It's time now for all the children, youth, and RE leaders to make our way next door. We'll bring our learning community chalice so we can share the flame of community during our RE classes. If you are a new family, please join us. Meet us in the lobby and we will show you where to go. Kindergarten families, we need a parent to sign a permission slip so that your student can go on a walking field trip this morning. So please join us briefly to do that. Let us all now sing our doxology, Spirit of Life.
It is our practice to share our offering each week with organizations that reflect our church's mission. For the month of October, we are sharing our plate with the Unitarian Universalist Association's Disaster Relief Fund. The scale of destruction in the wake of Hurricane Helene has been utterly devastating to many communities in the southeastern United States. Some Unitarian Universalist congregations have been seriously impacted, and others are still trying to assess the damage. You can help support Unitarian Universalists and their communities as they recover from this storm by giving generously to the UUA's Disaster Relief Fund. Our hearts are with all of those impacted by this devastation this morning. If you'd like to give, a QR code will appear shortly. If you are online, you can also use the donate button on Boxcast. And for those in person who want to give by cash or check, an usher will be by shortly for your donation. Thank you for your generosity, which sustains the ministry of this congregation and our partners in the larger community. During our service each week, we make space to hold the prayer intentions of this community. If you are here in person, you can light a candle of intention in one of our galleries. If you are online, you can send them to prayer@firstunitarianportland.org. And you are also invited to bring your prayer intentions to our weekly Friday evening online Vesper services. Our ministers and lay ministers are here to hold your prayers and provide care throughout the week. I have a few parish concerns to share this morning. Patricia Owens, sister of member Ruth Llewellyn Dix, died on Monday, September 30th, at the age of 89 in Columbia, Tennessee. Pat had lived with the effects of a stroke for the last 7 years. She is the last of Ruth's 3 siblings to pass in the last 4 years. We hold Ruth in our hearts this morning. We also hold Rian Morris, who grew up at First Church and who now works in our nursery. Rian shares that her grandmother, Miriam Mim Orleans, died last week at the age of 97. Mim lived all over the world in her younger years and visited many other places in her life. She was a professor at the University of Colorado teaching epidemiology and biometrics. She was also an accomplished pianist and spoke several languages. We hold Rian and her family in our thoughts and prayers this morning. Will you join me in a spirit of prayer? Spirit of life and love, God we know by many names, may we feel your presence this morning in the quiet of this moment, in the warmth of this community, in this sacred hour of shared worship. May we feel you near even amidst heartbreak, grief, and fear. We come with much on our hearts this morning. The escalating violence in the Middle East, the loss and destruction in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, a crucial but divisive upcoming election, and many more private worries and losses. Spirit of life, we know that these events call us to action. We know we are called to bring good news to the oppressed, to bind up the brokenhearted, and proclaim liberty to the captives. And we pray for the courage to use our voice and gifts in service of building the beloved community when we leave this sanctuary. But for now, here, we ask simply for a moment of stillness and respite, a chance to feel all that we are feeling, to grieve and lament and hope, and let our prayers for healing and peace fill this sanctuary. A moment to rest in the presence of the divine and to know ourselves held in a deep and abiding love. Spirit of life, may these few quiet moments spent together this morning help remind us of what is sacred and renew our spirits for the work that lies ahead. For this and so much more, we pray this morning. Amen. Will you join me in a few moments of shared silence? Amen.
I'd like to invite everyone, as you are able and would like to participate in the next anthem that the choir is going to be singing today. We did this once over the summer, but to refresh, there is a mantra that this piece uses, a phrase that repeats continuously that I would invite you to sing, and it sounds like this. Love, 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 all we need is 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 love. Good, good.
Good, fabulous. And that will repeat ad nauseum. You will know I will turn to you all and give a big cue, and I invite you to sing with us. Thank you for being here.
"50 years ago, 47% of Americans believed that most Americans could be trusted, according to the Pew Research Center. Today, that number is down by a third to 32% who believe that. We are living in a time of a crisis of trust, and we are also facing a crisis of trustworthiness. This is evident as we watch the candidates for the president and vice president debate as they are continuously fact-checked because of the falsehoods that fall from their lips. What does it mean that the leader who will be the most entrusted with power, including the power of our nuclear codes, may not be capable of telling the truth or correcting mistruths and the unnecessary harm that causes? The other day, I was talking with a friend who is a lawyer that works with Haitian immigrants. Her workplace had to close their doors, not stop the work, but literally to go home because of threats to their safety. They are working right now to advocate for the rights of Haitians and to seek damages on their behalf, as Haitians have already experienced harm from the lie a presidential candidate told in an effort to win an election. The crisis of trust and trustworthiness matters a great deal for us here in this congregation and for our society at large. Trust is the heart of relationships and building community, including our community. It is not a theology that we hold in common here, but rather a fideology, a faithfulness, a fidelity, a sacred trust we place in following our covenants. Both the ones that knit us together with Unitarian Universalists across the country, our 8 principles, and the recently passed covenant at last year's General Assembly, which invites all of us to put love at the center of our lives and our faith. And also First Unitarian Portland's behavioral covenant that hangs on the wall just outside and is up on our website. If you're new here, you can look at the About Us section. The final line of our congregation's covenant is, together we pledge to revisit and renew our promises to one another, to foster our spiritual growth and sustain the vitality of our congregation and its larger mission in the world. The Reverend Richard Boki is the Unitarian Universalist minister who coined that term fideology as opposed to theology. His concept is that faith and trust are inextricably linked, and in the end, we Unitarian Universalists place our faith in our fellow human beings in this community and even with our partners in the world, rather than in a particular concept of God. It is the trust we place in one another that fuels the journey of growing in spirit and community and the journey of justice and healing. And these are our mission. Trust is the foundation of this church and the foundation of our democracy, both here and in the United States. The historic journey and the future hope of our religious tradition and our nation are intertwined, especially when it comes to understanding principles of democracy. While this might fly in the face of the concept of the separation of church and state, it doesn't, in part because our spiritual ancestors came to cherish that value of the separation of church and state so deeply. The United States and Unitarian Universalists trace our spiritual and philosophical origins in this country back to the people of the Mayflower, who crossed the Atlantic in part to be free to practice their religion and not be bound to the religion of the King of England. Even if this is not an individual's literal ancestry, the myth of our beginnings impacts us all for the better and the worse. I appreciate the addition of the word inclusive before democracy that was just added at the General Assembly, because the Pilgrims' vision and that of the founding fathers of our nation was far too narrow to encompass our 8th principle. Two guiding principles of the Pilgrims, which do remain to this day as cornerstones of our secular government and our religious practices of governance, are freedom of conscience, including religious conscience, and the notion that we place our trust in the wisdom and discernment of the collective community rather than a pope or a king. The Mayflower Compact was essentially a covenant, an agreement between people that was bound by their promises to each other, and in which lay the stirrings of a more inclusive, representative government with rights for all, with the responsibilities that freedom entails, and the standard of God's justice to strive towards. The words of this compact of 1620 echo in a document 150 years later, the Declaration of Independence, which to this day provides a kind of national creed that we are still striving to live up to. One major difference between the democracy found in our nation and the democracy found in our congregations is that the former is involuntary and the latter is voluntary. As in the case of the Mayflower Compact, we continually, voluntarily conscript ourselves into covenant with one another in Unitarian Universalist congregations. No one is forcing us to be here or to make us work to fulfill the set of promises we make to each other. You get to choose to associate and participate in the promises we make, or you can choose not to be part of our community too. In the case of our citizenship or non-citizenship, we don't have a choice. You can't just become an American citizen by agreeing to the principles of our Constitution. And if we are citizens of this country, we cannot simply wake up tomorrow and choose to be a citizen of another land. Although I know some may have had dreams of that. At the time of the Mayflower Compact, the idea was one of a democracy where all decisions were made by majority rule. This required a faith summarized well by the following quip of E.B. White: "Democracy is the recurrent suspicion that more than half of the people are right more than half of the time." By the 1700s, our founding fathers saw a place for this principle. It is certainly largely the case in our annual elections, and many are working today to abolish the Electoral College to make it even more the case. However, the Constitution and the balance of powers between the executive, legislative, and judicial branches provide for limits on majority rule. In theory, this allows for the wisdom of the minority to prevail when the truth would seem to be on its side, along with the wisdom of the majority when the truth would seem to be on its side. In Unitarian Universalist congregations, we find much the same. There are certain measures which are put before the entire congregation, such as the election of ministers. That was the case with Tom and me. The Board of Trustees, their election, and the vote on the annual budget are decisions that are left to the whole congregation. Certain decisions are left to the authority of a particular group in which we have vested power. The governing board, the nominating committee, and the two ministers here are three examples of such leaders. The newly forming Right Relations team you'll hear a little about later will be another example. We allow these groups the opportunity to learn and grow and to become more expert on certain topics, and then either to make recommendations for us to consider as a whole body or to have the authority to make certain decisions on their own. We entrust leaders with our well-being. As with the concept of majority rule, the expectation is that all of this is in pursuit of the common good, and that when we fall short of our aims or make mistakes, by the community as a whole or by our leaders, that we will enact our collective commitment to do the work of reconciliation and forgiveness and to begin again in love, as stated in our covenant. This is necessary, as having faith or trust in one another doesn't mean an expectation of perfection, which is a symptom of white supremacy culture. And doesn't allow us to learn from making mistakes or navigate conflict. Sometimes our inadequacies or incompleteness on our own may be the very thing we need to move us towards a more just and holy spot. If we are willing to embrace our imperfection, then we learn just how much we have need of one another. All of us have something to give, and all of us have a need to receive from others, which is a great, growing, and transforming truth. I remember one such night from my own ministry where I learned something about when to step forward and offer leadership and when to receive the gift of leadership from others and to follow their lead. We were at a town council meeting in Morristown, New Jersey, there to counter our mayor's application to deputize our law enforcement officers as ICE officials. I came to speak at the request of local immigrant rights organizers. Up to that night, white clergy had remained largely silent. It was time to give voice to our desire for humane immigration reforms, including pathways for long-time residents to citizenship and access to education. Our county college at the time was refusing to give access to immigrants, to dreamers, even if they could pay. On one hand, I spoke eloquently and persuasively in the face of a bully abusing his power, our mayor, and so did many others. We had quite a showing that night. On the other hand, I walked into one of the mayor's traps. He accused me of supporting stacking, a practice in which more people live in a dwelling than is safe. Now, a leader in our immigrant rights collective, Deanna, came up to me following the meeting and asked, could I come with her to visit a woman in urgent need of a pastor? I, of course, said yes. A few minutes later, we arrived at a decaying building. As soon as we opened the front door, the smell of urine wafted into my nose as we walked up the stairs to the third floor. We opened that door, which was to an apartment with 5 families living in separate rooms. She led me into the second room on the right. We opened the door now to a small room with a bed filling it practically from one end to the other. In the room was a mother hunched over into the embrace of her little girl. Soon we heard her story. The father was in the county jail awaiting deportation on loitering charges. The mother was awaiting surgery the next day, a double mastectomy due to a cancer diagnosis. She asked if I would pray for her recovery, for his safe return, and for their daughter. The 4 of us, me, Deanna as our interpreter, the mother, and her 6-year-old, with the weight of the world, her family, and so much of the cruelty of the immigration system on her shoulders. As we walked down the stairs to leave, I turned to Deanna and said, it's about affordable housing and not stacking. Of course, she knew that already. And while the woman did need services of a minister, she knew that I needed to see that truth up close. What about the landlord charging outrageous fees to the family for the use of a few square feet? Robbery, not rent. That night always stays with me, reminding me that if I am lucky as a human being, my gifts and flaws will both be used in service of love, especially if I am open to the humanity and wisdom of others and to being led by the communities I seek to serve. I had the blessing of working with Deanna and of being extended trust by her and extending it to her and the Immigrant Justice Collective alongside a number of other congregants for many years. And yes, our relationship was grounded in the flow of trust. And I'll name that included a time when the congregation and that Immigrant Justice Collective had the experience of broken trust on both sides, and the experience of working our way back to repairing our relationship, which ultimately strengthened our bond, knowing that we would be there to support each other and the wider community, as well as to learn and grow together in our justice-making capacity over time. It is this quality of trust that I have had the blessing to witness and experience in Unitarian Universalist communities and other communities throughout my life. It is a trust that is rooted in love, the kind of love that can hold pain and suffering, and the kind of love that believes in a more just path, and with a willingness to have our hearts cracked open by the light and the love and the pain. You see, we are imperfect, and there is too much broken that must be mended, but that is no excuse. We are ordained by life to savor it, to save it, and to serve it. We must heed the shimmering spark, the divinity that resides in the core of our being, and allow it to shed enough light for us to move towards what we fear and hope for most, and past the ways we imagine ourselves inferior to the task. Our covenant calls us forth to heal the places of broken trust in our world, nation, and congregation, to be repairers of the breach. How can we say yes? One way right now is by calling people who are likely to be discounted or to discount themselves from voting in this election, and to let them know their vote matters. Right now, you might call one of your elected officials or write to them and share the anguish of over 40,000 dead, over 2 million displaced, and an epidemic of hunger in the Middle East, in Palestine. Or by us right now saying yes to a right relations team for our congregation to be a guide alongside us as we learn how to return to our covenantal promises when we fall short of them, and begin again in love. And by finding a cause or causes that we can devote our lives to that allow us to practice building the beloved community in ways that ask us to trust the journey, for we cannot stay still, but rather must move towards the possibilities of peace and reconciliation. And the movement won't stop until it includes all the living. Amen. Be blessed on that journey, and may it be so. And now in our staying, although if you're a newcomer, you don't have to stay for the board update following the postlude. I'd be delighted to greet you on the other side, or you're welcome to stay. So now in our grounding, may the light of love bless us and keep us. May it shine upon us. May it radiate out from within us. May it be gracious unto all of us. And may it make of us builders of a beloved path forward. For this is the day that you and I are given. So let us rejoice in it and be glad. Be grounded in peace. Practice love. Amen. I invite you to be seated, and I turn it over to our president.
Hello again. I'm Leslie Pulkosva, a long-timer here at First Unitarian Church, and I'm currently the moderator of the Board of Trustees. As you heard us last week from this pulpit, we are fully in support of our partner in ministry, Reverend Alison Miller, who was elected by this congregation by a vote of 99%. Alison is leading us to a bright future at First Unitarian Church, a beacon for Portland. We appreciate the strong showing of support from our congregation for our fabulous minister. In the past week alone, we received over 80 emails in support of Reverend Alison. We are so appreciative of the words that you all have sent. We read every email, and even though we do not respond to each one individually, we really appreciate being able to hear you. Again, thank you, and keep them coming. Reverend Alison is also in full support of this church, as you've heard, and Reverend Alison has demonstrated her support of us by working with us to make necessary and difficult decisions for the health of our community, and by working to generate positive changes for our community, some of which we are very excited to tell you about in today's forum, in this space, immediately following the service and after the postlude. Thank you.
Secretary of the Board of Trustees for First Unitarian Church. I would like to heartily welcome all of you to the first board forum of our 2024-2025 church year. The board is so appreciative of your engagement in our church community, in the community beyond our city block, in addition to your important financial contributions to support the church mission. Our church theme this year is Join the Journey. That is an appropriate theme for one of our board goals this coming year, which emphasizes the broadening and deepening of the board's engagement with the congregation. As a new board member, I want to let you know there is a palpable positive energy around expanding opportunities for congregants to get involved in our church. At today's forum, you'll be hearing more about that, some of those opportunities coming out of the board's continuing work. Please settle in for the next 15 minutes, listen, learn, and engage with us. Again, welcome. I have a special announcement. We, the board, wanted to let you know that we have received a request from the protest group, self-identified as the Congregant Organizing Action Team, to inspect and release First Unitarian Church's board membership list. Our church bylaws, governing policies, safe church policy, and Oregon state law all speak to this issue. The board would like you to know that we are taking this request under discernment. Sorry, the entire congregation membership list. I misspoke. Thank you. The board would like you to know that we are taking this request under discernment and getting assistance from legal counsel, but we are not fulfilling this request during this period of discernment and counsel. We will keep you, the members, informed as we progress on this issue. We are also asking that you please do not sign the petition about Reverend Alison, and if you have done so, consider removing your name. This action is unwarranted and prevents us and her from focusing on our collective work of healing and building community. UUA regional leaders have also told us that this petition could do harm to our community's present and future ministry for years to come. It is time to move forward collectively with a focus on healing in our beloved community and with a focus on turning outward and centering the work of love in the world beyond our walls. Yeah.
The goals have been assigned by 2 committees and 2 groups, the goals of the board goals. They are drafts. We are going to revote on them again, but we wanted you to hear them. After we read the list, a representative of each group will describe their work in a bit more detail. As you can hear, there will be opportunities for you to participate in this work. So listen closely for all topics that call to you. Go ahead.
Number 1, support our minister, Alison Miller, assure a safe workspace, and complete the evaluation of ministry.
Number 2, hold at least 4 all-church forums per year, enhancing communications with the congregation and boosting our discussions with congregants. Work to install a right relations committee or ombudsman.
Number 3, work on significant governance policies and to include more congregants on the board committees of finance, governance, and communications.
4, hold forums and classes on proposals of board size reduction from 12 to 9 members, which the board voted on last year, as was passed in May of 2024, putting this change to bylaws before the congregation for a vote.
Number 5, continue towards the beloved community and the 8th principle work.
Number 6, assemble a balanced and sustainable budget.
These goals are the result of discernment over recent years and focused conversation at our board retreat in August. They address the shared desire for a review of our governance, increased transparency, and connection between the board and the congregation, more opportunities for connection within the community, and support for our still new senior minister. Also, it's in the context of our post-pandemic world and the conflicts within our community. There is significant alignment between the board's goals and input from the listening circles, input from the community conversations last year, communication from congregants, and the stated desires, even the stated desires of those who have been protesting.
As your elected Board of Trustees, we are excited to begin this work and continue the work that we've already been called to do. Here are the goals.
So the goals, I'm going to have committee members come up and speak to each of those. And by the way, we have, the Board of Trustees has 3 members who are out of town this week, and 1 who's working over in the learning community. We really appreciate their contributions on this. The first is Roger Robinson is going to speak to the Finance Committee goals.
Thank you, David. Good morning. I want to let you know that I'm the treasurer of the church, and so therefore I head up the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee is myself, a board member Bob Bonner, and board member Linda Craig. We also have, we benefit from greatly, 3 other people who advise us that are non-voting members and members of the congregation. That is Joanne Four, Karen Shaw-Cross, and Ed McLaren. Our meetings are on the 2nd Tuesday of the month. They're at 5 o'clock. They're on Zoom. If you go to our calendar on our website, you will get the Zoom link. And anybody and everybody is welcome to join in. Some of the things the first thing we're going to be doing publicly is going to be a finance forum that's coming at the end of October. It's going to be October 27th. It's going to be following services. It's going to be in the Elliott Chapel. All are welcome. It's going to be combined with a Q&A session with Reverend Alison. I want to let you know some of the task forces that have been created and to tell you what we've been working on. The first is what I'm going to call financial report literacy and transparency. We recognize that some of the information, financial information that we hand out and give to the congregation is a bit hard to understand. And so that task force will work at doing a better job of explaining our financial situation. Second of all, we have reserve accounts that have been with us for a number of years, and we're going to go through those reserve accounts to make sure that they are being used as originally intended. We are also reviewing our accounts with Beneficial Bank to make sure that we're safeguarding the accounts themselves and making sure that we're taking advantage of the money that we have at Beneficial. In addition to that, these are auxiliary committees or task forces we hope to form in the future. That one is buildings and grounds maintenance. We've not had a committee that's involved with congregants and staff, and we're going to start forming that soon. And also, you may remember that a few years ago, there was a real estate task force to take a look at our block and the potential uses of our block. We're going to reform that too, and you'll hear more about that. Thank you.
Hi. Hi, my name is Julia Lee Griffiths. My voice kind of comes and goes, so I hope we can all kind of be patient with whatever I've got today. I'm going to speak about the Communications Committee, which I chair, and also the Governance Committee, which John Bishop chairs, and he is out of town today. So first, I'm going to start with the Communications Committee. Our goals are to provide 4 all-church forums per year. This is one of them. We'll probably do more. We're going to have the one on the 27th. We also will have some about the idea to change the board size from 12 to 9. And then we've got whatever's going on with General Assembly coming up. We need to have a forum about that, right? Because we need to decide what to tell our delegates. The second thing is to include more congregants in our standing committees. And again, we mentioned that. So if you're interested in the Communications Committee, you can join us on the Tuesday following the board meeting at 6:30, and that's also on the church calendar on the website. Other goals for our community or our committee are to update the board's website information. There's a board web page that if you've been following the front steps, you saw a link to our most recent statement. The place you went, that's the board page. So to update the information on that continually. And our other goal is to find better ways or more ways to communicate with congregants. So far, we've really been relying on the front steps e-news. So what other ways are there for us to communicate with the congregation? Are we following me so far? I hope so. Okay. Let's see. So I did that. And I did that. And the third thing is, I mentioned that General Assembly is coming up. In the dim, dark past, we used to have a denominational affairs committee, right, that would kind of coordinate our activities with other Unitarian Universalist organizations, and so take the first steps to kind of rebuild that as well. So that's what's going on with communications. Now I'm going to put my John Bishop hat on, and I'm going to talk about governance, all right? Okay, so governance owns the implementation of the change in board size, study and plan for how policy governance should be practiced in our congregation, complete the evaluation of the ministry. This is supposed to be an annual evaluation of the congregation as a whole, not just the ministers, but the ministry, the work, the life of our congregation, right? So those are goals for the governance committee. And then another one I'm going to talk about is a board liberation team. This is a board-specific committee that is taking on the work of seeing how the board is living into the 8th principle. What are our processes? What are our practices that we should look at again in light of the 8th principle? And I think that's it. Okay, thank you.
A lot going on. You've already heard the mention of the Right Relations Committee, and I want to just let you all know that there's a task force that's been put together, and the purpose of the task force is to develop the goals of installing the Right Relations Committee. And the Right Relations Committee is to step in when conflicts arise in the congregation. The role of the Right Relations Task Force will create the goals and the structure for the Right Relations Committee. And the task force is just being formed as we speak and is getting started. Task force volunteers include Lauren McNeil, who has been involved with a similar committee at Elliott Institute, Kathy Ludlow, a former board moderator, and Jody Feldman, who has led anti-racism groups here at First Church. Also involved in the task force is Kathy Tortorici, a member of the governance committee currently, and John Bishop, who's the chair of the governance committee on our board of trustees. The right relations process is a way of improving relations within the congregation, especially during conflict. And ideally, the committee will include people with conflict resolution skills and who can encourage healthy conversations among congregants when conflicts arise. So if that sounds like you, please put your name in the hat. I also want to mention there is an HR committee. This is a human resources committee to the executive team. And the executive team, in collaboration with the Board of Trustees, called together a group of volunteer congregants to form a human resources advisory group in January of this year. Congregants serving with this group are Corbett Gordon, Randy Russell, and Julia Spence. A member of the Board of Trustees also is assigned to serve on the group, and currently that's John Bishop, our first vice moderator. All members of the HR advisory group have special expertise and experience working on human resource issues in employment settings. Since January, the HR advisory group has met multiple times per month, often weekly, to work on revisions to our church's staff handbook and to advise the ET on other personnel matters, including job descriptions and evaluation processes. This group works directly with the ET and will regularly communicate with the board about its progress.
As you can see, we have a small but mighty board. We also want to reiterate that we support Reverend Miller, and we want to ensure a safe workplace and safe sanctuary for all of us. Okay.
So hopefully, if you've been paying attention, there's a lot of work to be done at our church. But it's not the work that the board can or should do alone. We hope that you will join us, either by volunteering to be on a committee or task force, or at least by coming and participating in our upcoming church forums. And if you're interested in volunteering, please you can email the board at firstunitarianportland.org, or you can talk to one of your board members at a board table. Or look for additional notices in front steps, because what you've heard today is just the beginning. There will be more opportunities coming up.
Now we're in our almost to our questions. So I wanted to highlight a few dates that are coming up. On Sunday, October 13th, our renowned organist will be Joe McDonald will be having, I skipped a little bit. We'll be having a concert in celebration of our 100th anniversary of our beautiful sanctuary at the Elliott. There will also be another round of listening circles here at church in the Buchanan building in person. And please see the front steps for more details about how to participate in a learning circle or listening circle if you've not already done so. Also on the 20th of October is our annual fund drive kickoff. Very exciting. And on Sunday, as Roger had said, the 27th, there'll be a second board forum focused on our church finances and our question and answers from our minister. So, be prepared. We're now opening up for our question and answer session. We have some microphones, I hope, available. Oops. Well, you can speak loudly or come down here. And so everybody in the sanctuary can hear online. Please raise your hand if you would like someone to, well, yes. I'll repeat what he's saying, and basically Jim Zarin is saying that he wants our minister, since we don't have another microphone, He wants our minister to have a ministerial relations committee, which have been in the past, but was suspended when Bill Sinkford was here. And then you also want people to sit down who've been in the church for a while and talk about something.
Yeah, we'll want to have the people who've been in the church for a while challenge the people who are currently in it, but what we're going to look like 30 years from now. So 30 years past, 30 years forward.
And I'd like to mention that we will be having a long-range planning committee, probably starting in the winter. We'll look at that. So there'll be opportunities for you to have your input for that. And some of that will be on programming and some of it will be on the physical. Questions? Comments? Yes, up in the balcony. The question was about the membership directory, that we used to have one that was available. In the past few years, it's been not available, and some of the reason for that is security for your information. We want to make sure that your information is protected. Any other comments about, or can anybody fill us in on that? All right, go ahead. That's correct. And we're still deliberating, and we're seeking legal advice about that. Is that a microphone? Yeah. Okay, great.
There's a microphone. We're going to bring it down to you.
Yay. More comments and questions? Where? Up. Right. Oh, I see you.
Hello, hello.
Wish my eyesight was better.
She was in the dark.
Yeah.
There. Is that working? No. Hello?
He's got to turn it on.
Hello? No. Okay. There. Hi.
Yay.
First of all, thank you, board members, for your service. I can only imagine what a challenging year it's been, so thank you very much for everything you've been doing behind the scenes. I'm looking at the FAQ document that was put out, and the paragraph that I found most meaningful for me personally was the one reflecting on what the church has learned. I'm just going to read it real quickly, and then I'd like to hear more about it. The board has also experienced conflict, sometimes with unhealthy and unproductive patterns that reflect the influence of patriarchy and white supremacy culture. Changes have been made to improve our communication, and more work remains to be done. I know some of the points you've already made speak to this, but I'd like to hear a little bit more because I feel this, and I wrote the board and expressed this, that this was important to me to hear that acknowledgement, and I think it's the exact kind of thing that is reflected in the broader community that we need to struggle through. So can you talk a little bit more to that aspect, please? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. And we have regularly, we have a board liberation team committee on the board that helps to guide us when we make mistakes. And so we've paid attention to that. We've taken some anti-racism training, at least at our board retreat, and we continue on that work. We want to make our congregation, our meetings at the board fair and reasonable. So there's probably some more that you can add.
I'd like to
it.
add one other thing. There was a practice before I got on the board that sometimes people would be spoken over, right? And that a lot of times, apparently I wasn't there, from what I hear, went along gender lines, right? that people were talked over. And so we initiated a practice from sociocracy called rounds, right? Where everybody speaks one at a time, and you pause in between. And what that means is that everyone is heard. And then those who maybe are a little unsure about speaking up know that they don't have to butt in to get heard, that they're going to have their chance. You can always pass, but everyone gets heard. That's been an important one to me.
And also on the board, we would like to reduce the number of board members so that there can be more discussion and people aren't left out as well. So that's part of our reason for bringing that to you later this year. Anything you want? Roger? You have anything? Do you have anything you'd like to say? Okay. Okay. I hope that helps. We, as most of us are, just working our way through making sure we have a little more of a democratic, open process. And we're going to focus on the process and include people on our committees, include more people in our decision making. And Ronnie.
Are there plans for any changes to the bylaws coming up? And based on some of the things that I think have been brought up by this most recent series of events, are there things that now should or will be changed in the bylaws?
We know for sure that we will bring the reduction of the size of the board to you, but the governance committee has so much on their plate right now. The rest of our committees are going to try to help as well, but we could use assistance from congregants in this as well. But we'll probably be bringing at least 3 or 4 different items to your vote. So we don't know what they all are just yet.
Yeah, but there's the item that was the review of governance, and so that will likely result in things that we vote on, right?
Other questions or comments?
Could you clarify the process of placing congregants on these committees? Is that up to the chair of the committee? Is it up to the board? How do congregants get appointed?
Yeah, thank you for that question. There is kind of a discernment about who can be on the committees. We want to see skills, and we'd like to see enthusiasm and commitment. And so the board, the committee chairs will look at who wants to be on the committee, and they will recommend them to the board. Then the board votes to accept people on the committees. So there is a process for that. Thank you. So we're going to wrap this up in about a minute or two. One last comment or question? I really appreciate your staying here. Yes, gentleman back here.
Ooh, so you guys want to duke it out because you raised your hand at the same time.
There's been a lot of information that's been presented here this morning, a huge amount. And presenting information orally is great, but I'd just like to suggest that you follow up by putting it on the website, because there are people like me who can't hear worth beans anyway, and only got about 1/3 of it as you spoke. So I would just like to suggest that to the extent that you can, you put it on the website. And I know it's a lot of work, but please.
We're happy to do that. He mentioned putting it on the website, and like yourself, I can hardly see across the room, so so this comes to all of us. Yes, we will do that to keep you updated. So look to the web page. That's under the staff and also the lay leaders and the board. And we do have a section on our web page about updates, so please do that. Well, thank you all for attending. Oh, there's one more. Sorry, Barbara?
I just wanted to point out that the committee meetings you can go to by Zoom. You don't have to be a member. So if you want to attend and find out if that's something you are interested in, that's the way to do it.
It depends on the committee too. Governance wants to meet in person, but other committees may be online. So anyway, thank you so much, everybody. Enjoy your afternoon.
I'd like to thank our sextons for staying and helping us with the board forum. Thank you very much. can't believe he's still standing up. Yeah, right. He doesn't have the weight.
Normal. Curricular activities.
Or full-time, do the board, and I'm like a 2-year-old. But I'm afraid we have a pandemic. Anyway, I'm back. I actually feel super well. It's like, officially. Anyway, so yeah, You can make true statements.
Officially, or we meet you, I don't know, I've seen you definitely.
So he's